Hello, a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to TIE Global Summit 2020. TIE is the world's largest virtual global summit for the entrepreneurs by the entrepreneurs. The event boasts of 40,000 plus registrations, 350 plus speakers, 500 plus one-on-one sessions, 135 plus leading companies, and around 20,000 plus startups. I would also request you, all the full access participants, to log on to matchmaking software, complete your profile, and schedule meetings with fellow participants. AI powered matchmaking engine will recommend you suitable attendees to schedule your meetings. Now we're all started for our first session with none other than Sundar Madakshira, who's the head of marketing at Adobe in India and a research consultant. In his current role at Adobe, he drives all aspects of marketing for India. Sundar has held leadership positions for over 20 years in sales and marketing functions in SAP, Wipro, Hindustan Lever, and Visa. Sundar will be talking about 80-20 rule or rubbish. Over to you, Sundar.
Thank you, Gunjan, for those lovely words of introduction. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night to people joining us from different parts of the world. And today we are looking at the pandemic, and I hope all of you are doing safe with you and your family and all your colleagues. So I'm going to be sharing my screen now. So we're here to talk about a rather interesting as well as a contentious topic called 80-20 rule. Is it a rule or it's rubbish? So we've all been brought up on the Pareto principle, and we say that the Pareto principle exists pretty much everywhere. But let's do a check on that as the markets around us change, the strategies change, the new structures change, the segmentation changes for every product. So in this context, I would like to say that, but does the 80-20 rule, does it exist? Does it still hold good? If so, how? If not, how? And what do we do? Very importantly, what do we need to do about it, right? So let me just get into the rule. So what does the rule say? The rule says that 80% of your business come from 20% of your target accounts. Here, what we assume is a company has actually gone ahead, segmented its market into different parts, and they're looking at how we can actually expand and which are the segments that they should be going into. And for each segment, and within the whole segment piece itself, they're looking at all the segments. And what they're saying is, hey, you know what, this is the segment which has the largest value. And this is what we will go after. And that's the rule. That's the 80-20 rule. So which says that if you go and look at the top 20% of every account or every segment, you will end up getting 80% of your business coming from there. And then that is what you can sort of keep building on. So why is this rule even there? The rule is there because I think in many markets, the challenge is this, that the market size is always infinitely more than what a company can realistically achieve. This is a fact. There could be so many limitations because of which one cannot look at getting 100% market share simply because we don't have the resources. So where do you focus and get your attention to ensure that you are actually expanding in that place, which is actually offering you the greatest value? And this has been my experience as well. Companies start with a real big market sizing and then slowly start to validate their products, their services, and their solutions into that and say, what can we actually do to see that we are getting the whole market? But then over a period of time, they understand that there are certain target segments that they need to be going after, and that's what they should be focusing on. So that is the rule, and it's predominantly done to get higher focus and greater optimal utilization of the resources that they have. The second thing is sustenance. Very importantly, if you're not able to sustain your growth, if you're not able to sustain that relationship in the subscription economy, this becomes very difficult. So what do we mean by the subscription economy? All around us, there's a big shift moving from ownership to subscription. So everything from a cab service to a hotel room to software, even enterprise software, today is actually done on the basis of subscription. That is that you decide on a certain period of time that you're going to be using that service, you try it out, and if it makes sense, you renew it. So otherwise, you unsubscribe. So it's fantastic to see how many people have downloaded your app, but then over a period of time, you should also be looking at how many people have unsubscribed from your app as well, because that means lost business. So looking at that, how do you sustain that business? That is why the 80/20 rule actually exists. Finally, there's one more very important reason why this rule exists. If you look at any market, the top accounts or the top target customers are people who actually are able to sustain, and they are category leaders. They emerge as category leaders. They're also people who are wanting to try out new innovations. They're trying to find out what is best available in the market. And when people go and actually pitch to them, they listen simply because they want to get better. They're constantly seeking to get better of themselves. And because they're the market leaders, the other people in the market tend to follow them. So, in other words, why should you be applying the 80/20 rule? Is one, ensuring that you get higher focus and use your resources optimally. Second, because if you have that good relationship, you can sustain that relationship and build over it. And lastly, very importantly, is that you can, in each category, you can find out the top players and understand what they are actually doing, sell to them, and then ensure that they become the exemplars or your advocates amongst the tail end of the market. So that is actually the rule. Now, what are the pitfalls? The pitfalls of this rule are that the whole assumption is that the market segmentation or dividing the market into different parts has been done very well. And there is absolutely no flaw in that segmentation. Because if you segment the market wrongly, you will end up with 20% and hope that you'll get 80%, but you will not get 80% because you've not segmented and identified those 20% correctly. It was just a mathematical evaluation, probably, which got you into that place where you've not identified those accounts clearly. The second thing, very importantly from a pitfall, and I said that in the beginning, is that you've got to get the real market size. Okay. So as I said, when companies start off, they start off on a huge number of accounts. And then finally, they realize that their product or solution is something that's applicable only to a particular number of people in each of those segments. So have you really got the real market size? Or is it something that you have assumed, probably in an echo chamber, not really bothering to find out whether whatever you've done is really the right one? So getting the market size is important, but have you got the real market size, which is also dependent, by the way, on how much you can serve. There might be a large, market size, but how much of that is addressable by your sales organization is very, very critical. So in a perfect world where segmentation is fantastic and you've understood that sales addressable market, this rule definitely is something that you should be looking at closely. I have tried to draw a curve of the market. So as you can see from I'm not much of an artist, but here is what I want to talk about. Every market has got a top 20% account, then there is a large middle piece portion, and then there is a long tail of accounts. So every market can roughly be divided into this kind of a ratio, where there's a top account, there is something in the middle, and there's a long tail that is following. Now, is this something that's great? Is it applicable in perfect percentages? May not be. It could be a few percentage points here and there for your market, but it's important to segment the market in this manner. I just want to show that and give you some strategies for each of these segments. What do you have to do for the top 20%? The first thing is bring across the value very clearly, because these are your advocates. They are the people who are innovators. They are prepared to take these chances and bet on you. So you have a debt that you owe to them, by showing them disproportionately high value, or at least the value that your product or a solution actually sort of recommends to. So you what is that value, and how are you going to be delivering it to them should be crystal clear to you. And you've got to set the right expectations, because these are the top 20% of the accounts. If you do not succeed in these accounts in an authentic manner, the word will go around your brand saying that probably they don't have it in them to succeed. So you got to be careful, but there is riches here, because these are the big spenders, these are the early adopters, and these are the people who are willing to take that risk, and very importantly, the category leaders. Now, there is a second part, which is building that relationship. Now, whenever we look at value, sometimes we look at it purely from monetary purposes, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's a right way to do, because it's more objective. But coming along with that, and an enabler to that, is actually what are the kind of relationships that you have built at the most strategic levels with these accounts. The third one is actually what are the pitfalls of the top 20%. Now, some of the pitfalls that you should be aware of, and when people are engaging with them, is number one, not identifying these accounts accurately. I've actually already mentioned that. The second one, the major pitfall is not being able to sustain these relationships, and you know the, that falling apart, which is something that you really don't want it to. So the top 20%, there are riches, but you've got to deliver value, build those relationships, and avoid these pitfalls and some more pitfalls that we will potentially see. What do we do about the accounts in the middle? They are a large number, and they're just that list is just after the top 20%. And sometimes there may be shades of gray, in which it means that some of them might actually be in the top 20%, but for in the manner that you've segmented, they may be in the middle. So don't ignore it. First thing is nurture them. It is something that they may not be ready yet, but once they see the top accounts in their category actually adopt your product or solution, they will get ready. So you got to nurture it. You got to start that well ahead of time. Nurturing, unfortunately, is something that takes time. It's like nurturing a plant. You can't just plant a seed in the soil, water it, and then wait for 5 minutes and say, hey, it's not sprouting. That's not what we're looking at. Like the way that would take time, these nurturing also would take time. Remember, these are accounts in which there are no relationships that you have. So they will take more time to establish these relationships and nurture them and get them to grow, even when they're not buying from you. It's a bit like building a relationship, your professional network, right? Building a professional network, for instance, building a relationship. In all these cases, what do you do? When there is, you need to build that professional relationship ahead of the time that is needed, not at the time when you need it, because then it's too late. So nurture them. And second thing is assess value. Some of these people, some of these accounts can potentially get very big, but if you're not spent enough time nurturing them, then you will not be able to get enough value even at a future date. So and it's been my own experience that many of our clients who started very small with us, and we saw the potential in them, and they saw a great partner in us, have worked together, and over a period of time, these accounts which were real in the middle have become our top accounts. Last one is about cross sell, upsell, and deep sell. So, how do you do that? Get them to start with something, get them to start something small, maybe, but then over a period of time, cross sell more products to them, upsell whatever you have already sold, and deep sell, which is sending more quantity of the same products that you have actually bought. So, they have bought. So, this is how you nurture the middle. So, we're clear about what we need to do for top accounts, we're clear about what we need to do in the middle. But does it mean that we have to ignore the long tail? No. Anyone who's watched cricket, and I presume many of you have, know this for a fact that sometimes the tail end can actually wag a lot. So if you think that you've got rid of the top 10 batsmen, top 5 batsmen of your opposition, you still have a tail, and that can wag and actually win matches for your competition. You got to be careful. Similarly, I think you have to go watch the long tail, because the long tail, the challenge is you'll have a lot of accounts, a lot of people that who can potentially buy from that. So how do you actually get to that long tail is very, very important. So watch this closely and engage small. have something for them in which they can get started so that they know who you are. And the best part about this particular segment is that there is very little crowd in terms of competition and what people are actually trying to get in. So it might be much easier to get into these accounts. You can actually deploy the resources selectively to ensure that you're starting off somewhere. You don't have to be intense on them, but you should know what's happening in these accounts and look at those people who can potentially move from the tail to the middle and then to the top. It happens, it can happen, it happens all the time in a dynamic market like this. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and open it up for, we have a few minutes if there are any questions from any of the participants.
We do have a question. And the question is, how important is it to use data and analytics tool to understand the 80-20 split?
Yeah, I think it's very important. As I said, one of the big success factors to actually get to this particular split is accurate data. So if you don't have
Mhm.
accurate data, you will segment the market wrong, and then you will end up with an account and chase it with 80% of your rigor only to get 20% of the result, which is exactly opposite of what 80-20 is supposed to do. So use of analytics is very important. Also, I think use of analytics becomes more critical in two scenarios. One is when you have got a very large data set that you're actually dealing with, which is a no-brainer. But the other part, which is also very subtle, is that in a market dynamic which is changing dramatically, like the way it is happening right now, there could be segments which are emerging and which your naked eye is not able to catch simply because of the volume of the data. So, for
Yeah.
example, I keep quoting this. A lot of people in the BFSI segment actually realize that younger people are buying more insurance, which was not what was happening earlier. But today they're buying
Mhm.
because of the pandemic and the potential risks that are there. People are buying more homes. So for those people who think real estate agencies are not really growing, um, then
Mhm.
that's not really the case. It is growing, but that is not something that you'll catch that easily. You need an analytics tool to understand the not just who are these people, but also their characteristics, and absolutely add velocity and acceleration to reach out to these accounts. So I can't underline the importance of um, of data and analytics as much.
We have one more question, and the person says, really enjoyed the session.
We all have constraints, and this is all about optimization. For some reason, if you believe that you will want to deploy a much higher level of resources understanding this market, then it's perfectly fine. You don't have to go necessarily by this rule, but be clear about where you are likely to end up and what is it that you can afford, and how can you still remain profitability within your goals. Many companies have done that. If you see many e-commerce companies, they have all taken this approach, saying that there is a long tail, there's a lot of numbers, maybe they don't buy, but I need them to buy more. So I'm prepared to invest with them. This is something that comes over a period of time, and I'm prepared to wait that with patience. If you have the appetite, I think you should be doing that definitely. And we have all seen it in our lives that this definitely works.
Thank you. We have another question where the person's asking, which segment of the market do you think we need to focus the most on?
So clearly, as I said, clearly it is the top accounts which you should be looking at. As I said, also that that is also like a red ocean. There is a lot of people trying to compete, because like the way you have segmented and you have said this is my priority, somebody else also has done the same segmentation and also landed up on the same accounts. So in that sense, it's nothing new that's there on these accounts. So I'll be a little worried of going there all the time, but I clearly would say that if I were them and I have again resource constraints, I will look at the top accounts and I will look at some of the middle accounts where potentially they can be big, but there is less crowd and less competition in terms of who all are trying to sell to them.
We have the last question, and the question is that you have talked about the subscription economy. How does one go about pricing plans? Should there be one homogeneous plan or many plans?
Ideally, you should have multiple pricing strategies on this, because clearly what we are looking at is you want to differentiate. You want to differentiate people who are heavy users and give them more incentives, and light users who are giving less incentives. So you always motivate people to move into a higher level of consumption, and at the same time ensure that the barriers which are coming to higher level of consumption are also going down. It's like taking a gym membership, right? When you go and want to take a membership, everybody wants to take, the insistence is on 12 months, but people say no, I don't know if I'm going to continue or not, so let me do it for 3 months. So what do? You do give it for 3 months and then say, okay, for the same rate, I'm going to let you top it up and to become a year. So remove those barriers that are there to for people to go to a higher slab. But slabs, you must. Again, don't have too many slabs and too many pricing strategies, because that makes the whole process very, very complex for you to
Yeah.
manage and for your customers to understand. You don't want them to do a PhD just to understand your pricing schemes. You want that to be easy and something that they can approach without too much of a challenge. So that's what I would say. And of course, I would like to end by saying this is the era of liquid experiences. So people are actually learning from another environment and expecting the same thing to you. So people who actually want to buy, let us say, a mid-size enterprise product, pretty much the same way they have actually subscribed to an OTT app for their weekend, entertainment. They want it to be that easy. So in that era, you're not competing against another competitor like you, but in terms of experiences, they want the same ease of experience like it is to make a credit card payment. So with that, I think yeah, I'd like to just share one last slide from my side, if I may. Can I do that?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So so I would say that, in summary, the 80/20 rule really applies. It works. It's not really a myth. I think only when we do it badly, or don't do things the right way, I think it doesn't hold good. But 80/20 rule is good, just that there are certain terms and conditions that apply when you're actually using the rule. So be aware of those terms and conditions, and this will work very well. I'd like to thank all of you for a wonderful opportunity to share a few thoughts that I have on this topic, and wish you all a very happy Christmas and a new year. If we don't meet again, and till then, stay happy and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sundar. We're going to move on to our next session, but I have to say those were some really wonderful insights about the 80/20 rule. I think everybody talks about it, but nobody really knows how to deep dive into it. And you've made that possible not only for me, but for everybody who was able to see this session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Gunjan.